Okay, welcome back to the button intro. We're going to go back into our code, and if we compile here, you notice we left off without compiling, and there is one slight error, and we're going to fix that now. When you fill the oval, you have to give it 4 parameters. So we want to do size comma size here is the key thing. And what this does is this draws a filled in oval at position x comma y, that's the upper left corner, with a width and height of size. Okay, so by just clicking one size, we're coding in the diameter of the oval that we want to display. All right, so that is going to fill that in with the fourth parameter. So xy is a start point and the size. And then if that changes, when we're painting, whenever it changes, it will update the x and y and the size, so the position and the size based on our button clicks. So let's go into our action performed method. And you'll notice that the action event E is in there, and again, it's a little bit of magic code. And what that's doing for us is E essentially is clicking on the button. So what we say here is if E dot get source, open and close parentheses, magic code, equals up. So that means user clicks on up button. So what are we going to do? We are going to increase, or we're going to change our y coordinate. But remember, moving up in graphics is really subtracting from the y coordinate because downward is positive. So we're going to say y equals y minus 10. Right, so this is going to move the position up by 10 pixels. And now we're going to repeat this for the other buttons. So if e.getSource equals down, we are going to increase the y coordinate. Y equals y plus 10. If e.getSource equals right, we are going to say x equals x plus 10, because to the right is positive. So if we want to move it to the right, we have to increase the x coordinate. And finally, if e.getSource equals left, we will tell them x equals x minus 10. And perhaps the most important part, at the end of the action performed, and this goes for virtually any class that will write this year, any applet, we want the last line of code to be repaint. And what this does is this recalls the paint method and updates any changes and displays it. That's the most important part. It displays the new version of our picture. In this case, it's just a circle. And you can see what we have here in our paint class, in our paint method. We're not filling the oval at one particular at 50, 50, 20, 20. We're actually basing our drawing on the x and y position, whatever x and y may be, and whatever the size happens to be. Now our size at this point will always be 40, but eventually that's going to change when we add the option to increase the size of our shape. So let's compile this and let's run it and see how it looks. So now if we go to our shapeshifter and we run the applet, and we can see move this completely into view. All we just have to do is say OK. And I'll move this also into view, and see we have a nice blue circle. And now, the moment of truth, do our buttons work? If we click on up, sure enough, it moves up. And if we go down, it's moving down. If we go left, that's great. And if we go to the right, we have it moving to the right. So this is awesome. This goes exactly what we want it to do. Moving up, down, left, right, however we do it. Our shape moves across the viewing screen in whatever manner we ask it to move. So awesome. Let's check out our code and see what we have in store for us next. In phase 2, we want to add buttons that would change the size of the circle. Okay, so I'm going to add a little note here. So we essentially have to add buttons, bigger or smaller. So we're going to say phase 1 variables. And we're going to have, I'll call this phase 2 variables. This is just for separation in our own mind, in our code, so we can see what's what. We're going to do private button bigger, comma, smaller. So that's all we have to do. We just have to declare those two variables. We now go down to our init. We can keep our size and keep everything where it was, and we can start phase 2 in here. Now we could integrate, like I said, the buttons into our declarations of do all of our buttons at once if we wanted to. But let's do them separate. So we're still in the init method. It's still part of the initial setup of our applet, and we're going to, let's just refresh our memory. We have bigger and smaller, so we're going to say bigger equals new button. We wanted to say on here bigger. We're going to say bigger dot add action listener this, and we're going to add bigger to the screen. And then we're going to do the same with the smaller button. Smaller equals new button smaller. Smaller dot add action listener this, and add smaller. So now these buttons will get added to the screen right after the up, down, left, right. So they will, remember, Java will place it in a logical position. So we've added them in this order. It'll get, the bigger and smaller will get added after the 4 that we've already put on. If we wanted them to go first, we'd cut and paste this up to the beginning of the method, and then they would be on the screen first. Now let's program what these buttons are to do. So we go down to our action performed, and what's going to happen if e.getSource equals bigger? What would we want to do? Well, we want to increase the size. So we're going to say size equals size plus, let's go with 5 and see how that looks. Be a smaller increment. Instead of moving, we've done our movement, I arbitrarily picked to do 10. Let's have our size change by 5. And we add in here, if e.getSource equals smaller, what do you think we should do here? Size equals size minus 5. So that would decrease it by 5, and the repaint still stands. So after we've clicked one of these, you can only click one at a time, so else's are not necessary. Once you've clicked one of these buttons, either the X or Y coordinate will be changed, or the size will be changed depending on what button you click on. If you don't click on any button, then none of this happens, and there's nothing to worry about. So if we compile this, everything looks good. And let's see phase 2 complete. So we're going to choose to run our applet and move our applet viewer in here. And what we can see is that our smaller button kind of got moved to the second row because they wanted it to fit nicely. So let's check on the bigger, see how it grows, smaller, see how it grows. It gets smaller there. We can still go left and right, still work. We can make it bigger at any moment or smaller at any moment. And interesting with the buttons, if we change the size of this window, like the smaller will go up there. So it recognizes exactly how big the window is, and if there's room to place it all in one row, we'll do that. But if we made this really skinny, they'd put even more than and we'd have them like that. So it's always, the Java is always figuring out what the current size of the applet viewer is. And because we didn't give it an exact location of where we wanted the buttons to be placed, it just puts it in what I would just call a logical position, something that fits. It auto formats for us. It might be a good way of thinking of it. So our up, down, lefts, and rights all work, are bigger and are smaller. And you can actually see when it grows to get bigger, it's getting bigger to the right and to the down because that upper left corner hasn't changed. And everything, the position of our circle, or if it was a rectangle, is based on the upper left corner of the shape. And so you can almost think of the circle as having it being built into a square, and that upper left corner of that square is really what the X and Y is. So when you get bigger, it's still growing from, that's like the point of up here of where it's growing from, and that part stays stationary, and it gets bigger to the right and bigger downward. And the smaller, we can see the same thing. It's growing based on that point, isn't changing, and everything is coming in towards that point. And the left, the right, and the left all work as planned. So that concludes our phase 2. So phase 1 and 2 is done. In future lessons, we will look at how to add the button to toggle between the circle and the square and the solid and the outline. We have to do a little bit more work for that in adding some calculations. And the fine-tuning is a lot of fun as well, where we can actually customize precisely where each button looks, so we can make, and even we could change the size of the buttons. So there's a lot of cool things we can do to looking forward to in phase 5. But before that, we do want to handle the toggling between our squares, square versus circle, and to do some calculations that would show up on the screen. So look forward to continuing this cool project.